The bounty on Willow Drake's head had been lifted 3 months ago, but the people of Lyndon, Kansas still crossed the street when they saw her coming, and that hurt worse than any bullet ever could. She stood at the counter of Miller's General Store on a sweltering July morning in 1878, watching the shopkeeper's wife deliberately turn her back and busy herself with arranging canned goods that were already perfectly aligned. Willow had been waiting for 15 minutes, her basket of items sitting on the scarred wooden counter, her coins counted out and ready. 2 other customers had come in after her and been served immediately, their purchases wrapped and tied with string while she remained invisible. "Excuse me," Willow said quietly, her voice steady despite the familiar ache in her chest. "I have my payment ready." Mrs. Miller glanced at her husband, who was serving a rancher near the back of the store. He gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. The message was clear. They would not serve her. Willow gathered her coins and left the basket on the counter, walking out into the harsh Kansas sunlight with her head high and her heart low. She had robbed 3 stagecoaches 2 years ago, riding with the Keller gang when she was barely 19 years old and desperate after her father's death left her with nothing but debts. She had been caught, served 8 months in prison, and been released on good behavior after the judge took pity on her youth and the fact that she had never fired her weapon at anyone. The law had forgiven her. The town never would. She walked down the dusty Main Street toward the boarding house where she rented a small room, aware of the whispers that followed in her wake. A group of women in their Sunday best stood outside the church, planning the upcoming social, and their conversation died the moment Willow passed. She heard one of them say something about maintaining standards, about protecting their daughters from bad influences. Willow was 21 now, and sometimes she felt ancient. The boarding house was run by Mrs. Peterson, one of the few people in Lyndon who would take her money. The elderly widow asked no questions and expected none answered, which suited Willow perfectly. She climbed the narrow stairs to her room on the 2nd floor, the floorboards creaking under her worn boots. Her room was sparse but clean, containing a narrow bed, a washstand, a small table, and a single chair positioned by the window. She had sewn the curtains herself from fabric scraps, trying to make the space feel like home even though she knew this was only temporary. Everything in her life was temporary now. She had been trying to save enough money to leave Lyndon, to start fresh somewhere no one knew her name or her history. But work was impossible to find. She took in mending when she could, but most women refused to trust her with their garments. She had tried to get work at the hotel, the restaurant, even mucking stables, but doors closed in her face before she could finish asking about employment. The money she had saved from before her arrest had gone to pay her father's debts and her legal fees. She was starting from less than nothing. Willow stood at her window and looked out at the town that had once been her home. She had been born here, had played in these streets as a child, had attended the schoolhouse on the edge of town. Her mother had died when she was 12, and her father had done his best to raise her alone while running a small farm outside town. When a drought had devastated their crops 3 years in a row, and her father had borrowed money he could not repay, the weight of it had broken him. He had died of a heart seizure in their kitchen, and Willow had been left with nothing but bills and the rapidly approaching foreclosure of the only home she had ever known. That was when Marcus Keller had found her. He had been smooth-talking and handsome, promising easy money and adventure. She had been young and desperate, and stupid enough to believe that robbing from stage lines that belonged to wealthy Eastern companies was somehow different from stealing from real people. She had learned the truth quickly enough when she saw the fear in the faces of the passengers they stopped on the road, when she realized that the money she was taking might be someone's savings, or a payroll that workers depended on to feed their families. She had wanted out, but the gang did not let people leave. So when the marshal had finally caught up with them in a shootout outside Dodge City, Willow had surrendered immediately. She had told the law everything she knew about Marcus Keller's operations, had testified at the trial that sent him and 2 others to prison for 20 years. The judge had called her cooperation courageous. The town had called her a criminal and a traitor both, somehow managing to condemn her for her crimes and for turning on her fellow criminals in the same breath. A knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. Mrs. Peterson stood in the hallway, her thin face creased with concern. "There is a gentleman downstairs asking for you," the landlady said. "Says his name is Yates Ramsey. He is a cowboy from one of the ranches outside town." Willow frowned. She knew the name but not the man. The Ramsey family owned a substantial spread about 10 miles west of Lyndon, running cattle and breeding horses. They were respected, successful, and exactly the kind of people who normally wanted nothing to do with her. "Did he say what he wants?" Willow asked. "No, but he is waiting in the parlor. He seems respectable enough." Mrs. Peterson's tone suggested that anyone who would ask for Willow Drake was automatically suspect, but the landlady was too polite to say so directly. Willow smoothed her faded cotton dress and checked that her dark hair was still neatly pinned. Whatever this man wanted, she would face it with dignity. She had learned in prison that dignity was sometimes the only thing they could not take from you. The parlor was a small room at the front of the boarding house, furnished with a worn sofa and 2 mismatched chairs. A man stood by the window, his back to her, his shoulders broad beneath a clean work shirt. He held his hat in his hands, and his dark hair was slightly too long, curling at his collar. When he turned at her entrance, Willow found herself looking into the most direct pair of gray eyes she had ever seen. He was perhaps 27 or 28, with a strong jaw and a face weathered by sun and wind. He was not handsome in the refined Eastern sense, but there was something compelling about his features, something solid and real. He looked like a man who kept his word. "Miss Drake," he said, his voice a deep rumble, "thank you for seeing me. I am Yates Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey." Willow remained standing, her hands folded in front of her. "Mrs. Peterson said you asked for me. I cannot imagine why." "I need to hire someone," he said bluntly. "My ranch needs a cook and housekeeper. The previous woman left to care for her sick daughter in Missouri, and I have been making do on my own for 3 weeks now. I am a terrible cook, and the house is suffering from neglect. I can offer $40 a month plus room and board." Willow stared at him. $40 a month was an excellent wage, more than fair for such work. It was the kind of opportunity she had been praying for, which meant there had to be a catch. "You know who I am," she said. It was not a question. Everyone in Lyndon knew who she was. "I know what you did, and I know you paid for it," Yates said. "I also know you have been trying to find honest work for 3 months with no success. I need help and you need employment. Seems to me that is a fair trade." "Why me?" Willow asked. "There must be a dozen women in town who would take that position." "I have asked 5 of them," Yates said dryly. 3 refused outright because they are too proud to work as servants, even though they are happy to let their families slowly starve on pride. 1 wanted $60 a month and every Sunday and Monday off. The last one took one look at the state of my kitchen and walked out. "And you think I will not?" "I think you are not in a position to be particular," Yates said, and though the words could have been cruel, his tone was matter-of-fact rather than unkind. "And I think you have the grit to handle hard work. Anyone who survived what you survived has grit." Willow studied him carefully. "Mr. Ramsey, I appreciate the offer, but I have to ask what you expect for that wage beyond cooking and cleaning." His expression did not change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. "I expect a clean house, edible meals, and laundry that does not smell like horse. That is all. I live alone on the ranch except for 3 ranch hands who bunk in a separate building. You would have your own room in the main house with a lock on the door. I am not a saint, Miss Drake, but I am not that kind of man." "Everyone in town will talk," Willow said. "They already talk about you," Yates pointed out. "And frankly, I do not give a damn what the gossips in town say about me. I need help, you need work, and that is the beginning and end of it. If you want the position, be ready tomorrow morning at dawn. I will pick you up in my wagon." He settled his hat on his head and moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at her. "For what it is worth," he said quietly, "I think everyone deserves a second chance. You made mistakes when you were young and scared, and you have paid for them. That should be enough." He left before Willow could respond, the front door closing softly behind him. She stood in the parlor for a long moment, her heart beating faster than it had in months. This could be the opportunity she needed, the chance to save money and eventually start over somewhere else. Or it could be a disaster, a different kind of trap. But what choice did she have? She could stay in Lyndon, slowly starving and being shunned, or she could take a chance on a stranger who offered her something no one else would: respect, work, a second chance when Mrs. Peterson appeared in the doorway. Willow turned to her with the first genuine smile she had worn in months. "I will be leaving tomorrow," she said. "I have found employment." The ranch was not what Willow had expected. She had been picturing something rough and barely maintained, given Yates's comments about his poor housekeeping. Instead, the property they approached in the early morning light was substantial and well kept. The main house was a solid 2-story structure built of timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front and side. Corrals and outbuildings were arranged in neat order, and she could see cattle grazing in the distance, the herd larger than she had anticipated. "How much land do you have?" she asked, breaking the silence that had filled the wagon ride. 3,000 acres, Yates said. "My father started the ranch 30 years ago, and I took over when he passed 5 years back. We run about 800 head of cattle and breed horses on the side." "It is a good operation." "It looks it," Willow said honestly. "Your father built well." "He did." Yates's voice carried a note of pride and old grief. "He taught me everything about ranching, about treating the land and animals right. I try to honor that." He pulled the wagon up in front of the main house and helped Willow down. She carried only one small trunk containing all her worldly possessions. It was embarrassingly light. "Let me show you the house," Yates said, lifting her trunk as if it weighed nothing. "Fair warning, the kitchen is a disaster." He had not been exaggerating. The house itself was beautiful, with good wooden floors and large windows that let in plenty of light. The furniture was simple but well made, and the rooms were spacious. But the kitchen looked like a battlefield. Dirty dishes were piled in the basin, pots crusted with burned food sat on the stove, and the floor clearly had not been swept in weeks. The adjoining pantry was nearly empty, the supplies disorganized and depleted. "Good Lord," Willow breathed. "I warned you," Yates said, looking embarrassed. "I have been eating in town when I can, or making do with whatever I can throw together. Eggs, mostly. I am very tired of eggs." Despite herself, Willow laughed. "I can imagine. All right, show me the rest, and then I will make a list of what needs to be purchased." He showed her through the downstairs, which included a comfortable sitting room, a dining room with a large oak table, his office, and a small washroom. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, though only his appeared to be in use. He showed her to a room at the end of the hall, as far from his as possible. She appreciated that consideration. The room was lovely, larger than her boarding house space, with a real wardrobe, a comfortable-looking bed, and windows that overlooked the eastern pastures. Morning light poured in, warm and golden. "This is beautiful," Willow said softly. "It was my sister's room," Yates said. "She married a banker in Denver 3 years ago. She is happy there, but I miss her. She was the one keeping this place civilized." "I will do my best to maintain her standards," Willow said. Yates nodded and moved toward the door, then paused. "Miss Drake, I want to be clear about something. You work for me, but that does not make you a servant in the way some people think of it. You are an employee, and I respect that. We will eat meals together unless you prefer otherwise, and you are free to use any part of the house you wish. This is your home as long as you work here." Willow felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. That means more than you might realize." "Call me Yates," he said. "We are going to be living in the same house. Might as well dispense with the formalities." "Then you should call me Willow." He smiled at her, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his serious face. "Willow, that is a pretty name, suits you." Then he was gone, his boots loud on the stairs, leaving Willow alone in her new room with her heart doing strange things in her chest. She spent the rest of the morning assessing the situation. The house needed a thorough cleaning, but it was structurally sound and well built. The kitchen would take the most work, but once she got the dishes washed and the surfaces scrubbed, it would be a pleasant place to work. The stove was good quality, and there was a root cellar that would keep things cool. She made lists, checking the supplies and noting what was needed. When Yates came in for lunch, she had a pot of coffee brewing and was halfway through the mountain of dishes. "I need to go into town for supplies," she said. "Quite a lot of them, actually. Your pantry is nearly bare." "I will take you this afternoon," Yates said. He poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, watching her work. "Can you make anything for lunch with what is here? Do you have chickens?" "Yes, in the coop out back. About a dozen layers. Then I can make eggs and biscuits. I found some flour and lard." "Eggs again," Yates said mournfully, but he was smiling. "At least they will be prepared by someone who knows what they are doing." Willow shooed him out of the kitchen and set to work. She had always been a good cook, learning from her mother and then perfecting her skills out of necessity. She made fluffy biscuits and scrambled eggs with wild onions she found growing near the house. When she called Yates to the table, he looked at the simple meal as if it were a feast. "This is the best thing I have eaten in a month," he said after his first bite. "It is just eggs and biscuits," Willow protested. "But they taste like actual food instead of something that might kill me," Yates said. "You have already earned your wages." The trip into Lyndon that afternoon was exactly as uncomfortable as Willow had expected. The moment they walked into Miller's general store together, the conversations died. Mrs. Miller looked at Willow with shocked disapproval, then turned to Yates with confusion. "Mr. Ramsey," she said, "how can I help you today?" "My new housekeeper needs supplies," Yates said calmly, gesturing to Willow. "She has a list." Mrs. Miller's lips thinned. "I see." "I am sure you do," Yates said, his tone pleasant but his eyes steely. "The list, Willow." Willow handed over her carefully written list, and Mrs. Miller looked it over with obvious reluctance. It was a substantial order, which meant substantial money, and Willow could see the woman's internal struggle playing out on her face. Finally, greed won over prejudice. "This will take some time to gather," Mrs. Miller said stiffly. "We will wait," Yates said. They stood in the store while Mrs. Miller and her husband filled the order, aware of every curious and hostile glance. When old Mr. Patterson came in and saw Willow, he made a great show of turning around and walking right back out. Mrs. Miller looked apologetic toward the empty doorway, as if the old man's rudeness was Willow's fault rather than his own. "Some people need to learn manners," Yates said loudly enough for everyone in the store to hear. When their supplies were finally loaded into the wagon and paid for, Yates helped Willow up to the seat with a hand under her elbow. The touch was brief and proper, but Willow felt the warmth of it through her sleeve. As they drove out of town, Yates said quietly, "That must have been hard." "I am used to it," Willow said, trying to sound unconcerned. "You should not have to be." Yates kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the reins. "What you did was wrong, but you have paid your debt. The way this town treats you is wrong too, maybe worse because it is done with such self-righteousness." "Why are you being kind to me?" Willow asked suddenly. "You do not know me. For all you know, I am exactly what they say I am." Yates was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the creak of the wagon and the clop of the horse's hooves. Finally he said, "When I was 22, I got drunk in a saloon in Dodge City and got into a fight. I was angry about my father dying, angry at the world, angry at God. I beat a man badly enough that he almost died. The marshal threw me in jail for a month, and I had time to think about what kind of man I was becoming." He glanced at her, his expression serious. "The man I hurt could have pressed charges that would have sent me to prison for years. Instead, he accepted my apology and my offer to pay his medical bills. He gave me a second chance when I did not deserve one. That changed my life. So when I see someone else who needs that same chance, I remember what it felt like to receive it." Willow felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. "I am trying to be better than I was." "I know," Yates said simply. "I can see it." Over the next 2 weeks, Willow transformed the ranch house. She scrubbed every surface until it gleamed, organized the pantry, mended curtains, and beat the dust from every rug. She cooked real meals, hearty and flavorful, and took pride in the way Yates's face lit up when he came in from a long day to find dinner waiting. She baked bread and pies, made preserves from the wild berries growing on the property, and even started a small herb garden near the kitchen door. The work was hard but satisfying in a way nothing had been in years. She fell into bed exhausted each night and woke with the sun each morning, her body aching but her heart lighter than it had been since before her father died. She was earning her keep, proving her worth, building something. Yates was an easy person to work for. He was respectful of her space, always knocking before entering a room, always asking rather than demanding. He praised her cooking effusively and thanked her for every task completed. He did not hover or criticize, trusting her judgment on how to run the household. In the evenings, after dinner was cleaned up, he would sometimes sit at the kitchen table while she worked on mending, and they would talk. She learned that he loved the ranch with a fierce passion, that he believed in treating animals and land with respect, that he read voraciously and had a small library in his office. He learned that she could identify birds by their songs, that she had wanted to be a teacher before circumstances had derailed her life, that she missed her parents every single day. "You would have been a good teacher," Yates said one evening, watching her darn one of his work shirts with neat, precise stitches. "Maybe in another life," Willow said. "Maybe in this one," Yates said. "It is not too late. You are only 21. "I am a convicted criminal," Willow reminded him. "No school would hire me." "Then start your own school. Teach ranch children who do not have easy access to town. There are at least a dozen families within riding distance who would probably pay to have their children educated." Willow paused in her stitching, the idea taking root in her mind. Could she do that? Could she build something new from the ruins of her old dreams? "Think about it," Yates said. "You have time." The 3 ranch hands who worked for Yates were curious about Willow but respectful. Jack was the oldest, a weathered man in his 50s who had worked for Yates's father. Tom and Sam were brothers in their early 30s, good-natured and hardworking. They ate meals in their bunkhouse, but sometimes Willow would send over fresh baked goods, and they would tip their hats to her in gratitude. "Boss is happier since you came," Jack said one afternoon when he stopped by the kitchen for a jar of liniment for a horse. "House looks like a home again." "I am glad to be here," Willow said honestly. "You are good for him," Jack said. "Good for the place. Do not let the town busybodies run you off." But the town busybodies were persistent. When Willow accompanied Yates to church on Sunday, thinking perhaps she could start rebuilding bridges, the minister's wife made it clear that Willow was not welcome. The sermon that day was about Mary Magdalene, delivered with pointed looks in Willow's direction. Yates had stood up in the middle of it, offered Willow his arm, and walked out of the church with her while the congregation gasped. "You did not have to do that," Willow said when they were outside, her cheeks burning. "Yes, I did," Yates said flatly. "That was cruel and unnecessary. If that is Christianity, I want no part of it." "They will shun you now, too," Willow said. "Let them try." Yates helped her into the wagon. "I do not need people who cannot practice the forgiveness they preach." That evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold across the prairie, Yates found Willow standing on the porch, watching the sky. He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "I am sorry today was difficult," he said. "You have been kinder to me than anyone has in 2 years," Willow said quietly. "I do not understand why, but I am grateful." "Maybe I am tired of loneliness," Yates said. "This ranch is successful, but it has been empty since my sister left. You have brought life back to it." "You have brought life back to me." Willow turned to look at him and found his gray eyes intent on her face. Her breath caught. "Yates," she said softly. "I know this is complicated," he said. "I know people will talk. But I find myself not caring about that as much as I care about seeing you smile, about coming home to you each evening, about the way you sing when you think no one is listening." "You can hear that?" Willow asked, embarrassed. "The kitchen window is open." Yates smiled. "You have a beautiful voice. Do not stop." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were calloused but gentle. "I am not good with words," he said, "but I want you to know that you are not just an employee to me. You have become important." "You are important to me too," Willow whispered, "but I come with so much baggage, so much history. You deserve better." "I deserve to be happy," Yates said, "and you make me happy. That is what matters." He left her there on the porch with her heart racing and her mind spinning. She had not expected this, had not let herself hope for it. She had learned to keep her heart guarded, to expect disappointment and betrayal. But Yates was different. He saw past her mistakes to the person she was trying to become. He offered her not just a second chance at employment, but at life itself. That night, lying in bed in her comfortable room, Willow let herself imagine a future that included more than just survival. She let herself imagine happiness. August brought brutal heat to Kansas, the kind that made the air shimmer and the earth crack. Willow and Yates fell into an easy rhythm, working together to keep the ranch running smoothly. She learned to help with smaller tasks outside, feeding chickens and collecting eggs, tending the vegetable garden she had planted, even helping sort cattle when they needed an extra hand. Yates taught her to ride properly, patient with her nervousness, encouraging when she succeeded. "You are a natural," he said, watching her trot around the corral on a gentle mare named Daisy. "I am terrified," Willow called back, but she was smiling. "Terror and courage are not opposites," Yates said. "Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. You have more courage than anyone I know." They were growing closer, drawn together by proximity and genuine affection. Yates found excuses to touch her hand, her shoulder, her back. Willow found herself lingering near him, drawn to his steady presence. They had not spoken again about what was developing between them, but it hung in the air like a promise, sweet and terrifying. One evening in late August, a stranger rode up to the ranch just before sunset. He was a hard-looking man with cold eyes, and Willow recognized him immediately. Her blood turned to ice. "Hello, Willow," Marcus Keller said, dismounting from his horse. "Miss me?" Yates appeared from the barn, alerted by the sound of hooves. He took one look at Willow's face and moved immediately to stand between her and the stranger. "Who are you?" Yates demanded. "Name is Marcus Keller," the man said. "I am an old friend of Willow's. We used to work together." "I know who you are," Yates said coldly. "You are the man who used her, who led her into crime, who is supposed to be in prison for the next 18 years. Marcus smiled, showing teeth. "Got out early for good behavior. Funny how things work out, and now I have come to collect what is mine." "I am not yours," Willow said, her voice shaking but firm. "I was never yours." "You rode with me," Marcus said. "You owe me. I did time because you talked to the law." "You think I am going to forget that? She owes you nothing," Yates said. "Get off my property." Marcus's hand moved toward his gun, and Yates moved faster than Willow would have thought possible. His own revolver was drawn and aimed before Marcus could clear leather. "I said get off my property," Yates repeated, his voice deadly calm. "And if you ever come near her again, I will not be so polite." Marcus looked between them, calculating. Then he laughed, a harsh sound. "This is not over, Willow. You and me, we have unfinished business." He mounted his horse and rode off into the gathering darkness. Yates did not lower his gun until Marcus was out of sight, and even then his body remained tense, ready. "Are you all right?" he asked Willow, finally turning to her. She was shaking, her arms wrapped around herself. "How is he out?" "He was supposed to be in prison for 20 years. I do not know, but I am going to find out." Yates holstered his gun and pulled Willow into his arms, holding her close. "I will not let him hurt you. I promise." Willow clung to him, breathing in the familiar scent of him, horse and leather and soap. "He is dangerous, Yates. He will not give up." "Neither will I," Yates said fiercely. "You are under my protection now. Your future starts with me, not with him. Do you understand?" Willow looked up at him, seeing the determination in his face, the protectiveness, the something deeper that made her heart soar even in the midst of fear. "Yates," he kissed her. It was sudden and desperate, his hands coming up to cup her face, his lips firm against hers. Willow made a small sound of surprise that became a sigh, her hands fisting in his shirt as she kissed him back. It was her first real kiss, and it was everything she had imagined and more, sweet and fierce and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Yates rested his forehead against hers. "I am sorry," he said. "I should have asked permission, I should have courted you properly. But the thought of him taking you away from me, of losing you, I do not want proper," Willow said. "I want real. I want this. I want you." "Thank God," Yates breathed and kissed her again. They stood in the yard as the stars came out, holding each other, until finally Yates pulled back reluctantly. "Come inside," he said. "I need to send word to the marshal, find out what happened with Keller's sentence. And you need to stay close to the house until I know you are safe." That night, Yates wrote urgent letters to the marshal in Dodge City and to the warden of the territorial prison. He also wrote to his sister in Denver, asking if Willow could come stay with her if things became dangerous. He showed Willow how to load and fire his spare revolver, making her practice until she could handle it competently. "I do not want to shoot anyone," Willow said. "I do not want you to have to," Yates said, "but I want you able to protect yourself if I am not here." The response from the marshal came 3 days later. Marcus Keller had indeed been released early, his sentence commuted by a new judge who believed in rehabilitation. The marshal was surprised to hear that Keller had come to Kansas, as his parole terms required him to remain in the Dodge City area. The marshal promised to investigate, but his letter made it clear that there was little he could actually do unless Keller broke the law again. "So we wait for him to do something terrible before anyone will help," Willow said bitterly. "No," Yates said. "We do not wait. We take precautions. Jack and the boys are on alert. I have asked neighbors to keep watch, and I am not letting you out of my sight if I can help it." He was true to his word. Yates stayed close to the house, working on projects he could do near the yard. At night, he moved his bedroll into the hallway outside Willow's room, sleeping there despite her protests that he would be uncomfortable. "I will not sleep at all if I am not here," he said simply. "Let me do this." The tension of waiting was exhausting, but it also brought Yates and Willow closer together. They spent evenings talking about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their pasts, dreaming about possible futures. Yates told her about his plans to expand the ranch, maybe add sheep to diversify. Willow told him about her idea for a school, the dream growing more real the more she spoke of it. "I could help," Yates said. "We could build a schoolhouse on the edge of the property, close enough to the road that other families could bring their children easily. You could teach reading and arithmetic and all the things you learned." "You would do that?" Willow asked. "I would do anything for you," Yates said. "I thought you knew that by now." They were sitting on the porch in the evening cool, and Willow reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I never thought I would feel this way about anyone," she said softly. "I thought I had ruined any chance at happiness, but you make me feel like I could have a real life." "A good life. You can," Yates said. "You will. We will build it together." "We barely know each other," Willow pointed out, though her heart was not in the objection. "I know everything that matters," Yates said. "I know you are kind and brave and hardworking. I know you sing when you bake bread. I know you are gentle with animals and fierce when defending what you believe in. I know that seeing you smile is the best part of my day. What else do I need to know?" Willow laughed, feeling lighter than she had in days. "When you put it that way." "I love you," Yates said suddenly. "I probably should not say it this soon, but to hell with should. Life is too short and too uncertain. I love you, Willow Drake, and I want a future with you. I want to build that school and fill this house with children and grow old watching sunsets from this porch. I want everything with you." Willow felt tears spill down her cheeks, but they were happy tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "I did not think I was allowed to love you, but I do. I love you so much it scares me." Yates pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly, feeling safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. They sat together until the stars wheeled overhead and the moon rose fat and golden over the prairie. Marcus Keller returned a week later, but this time he was not alone. He brought 2 men with him, both rough-looking and armed. They rode up in the afternoon when Yates was working with the horses in the far corral. Willow saw them from the kitchen window and immediately grabbed the revolver Yates had given her. She stepped out onto the porch, the gun held steady in both hands the way Yates had taught her. "Leave," she called out. "You are trespassing." Marcus smiled that cold smile. "Now, is that any way to greet old friends? We were never friends," Willow said, "and you are not welcome here." "You cost me 2 years of my life, locked in a cage like an animal," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "You think I am just going to forget that? You owe me, Willow. I figure 2 years of your life seems like a fair trade. You are coming with me." "Like hell she is," Yates said, appearing around the corner of the house with his rifle. Jack and the ranch hands were behind him, all armed. "You are outnumbered, Keller. Ride away while you still can." Marcus's two companions looked nervous, eyeing the rifles pointed in their direction. But Marcus just laughed. "You think you can protect her forever, Cowboy," he said. "I am patient. I can wait. And eventually you will slip up and she will be alone, and then we will settle our business." "The only business being settled today is you leaving," Yates said. "I have already contacted the marshal about your parole violations. He is very interested to hear you have been making threats." That seemed to give Marcus pause. His eyes narrowed. "You will regret this," he said to Willow. "Both of you." He wheeled his horse and rode off, his companions following. But this time, Willow noticed, they rode east toward town rather than away from the ranch entirely. They were not leaving the area. "He is not going to stop," she said quietly as Yates came up the steps to join her. "No," Yates agreed. "But we are going to end this. Jack, ride into town and send a telegraph to the marshal. Tell him Keller is camped somewhere near Lyndon and making threats. Tom, Sam, I want you to take turns keeping watch tonight. No one sleeps unguarded." "Yes, boss," they chorused. That night, Yates did not bother with the pretense of sleeping in the hallway. He asked Willow if she wanted him to stay in her room, and she nodded, grateful not to be alone. He set up his bedroll on the floor while she took the bed, but neither of them slept much. They talked in whispers in the darkness, sharing fears and hopes, growing closer even in the midst of danger. "If something happens to me," Yates started to say, and Willow cut him off. "Nothing will happen to you. I will not allow it." "But if it does," Yates persisted gently, "I want you to know that the ranch is yours. I wrote it into my will last week. Everything I have goes to you." "Yates, you cannot." "I can, and I did. You are my family now, Willow. You are my future. And if I do not have a future, then I want you to have security. Promise me you will stay here, keep the ranch going, build that school. Promise me you will not let fear win." Willow crossed the room in the darkness and knelt beside his bedroll, taking his hand. "I promise." "But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you will be careful. Promise me you will come back to me." "I promise," Yates said, pulling her down beside him. "I have too much to live for to be careless now." They lay together, fully clothed and chaste, just holding each other until dawn broke. And when the sun rose, bringing with it a new day, they faced it together. The marshal arrived 2 days later, a grizzled man named Harrison who had been tracking outlaws for 20 years. He listened to their story, examined the evidence of Marcus's threats, and promised to do what he could. "Problem is, he has not actually broken the law yet," Harrison said. "Trespassing maybe, but that is your word against his. Unless he does something more serious, my hands are tied." "So we wait until he hurts someone," Yates said, frustrated. "I am not saying I like it," Harrison said. "I am just telling you the reality. Best I can do is keep a presence in the area, make it clear he is being watched. Sometimes that is enough to make a man move on." But Marcus Keller was not most men. He stayed in the area, and Willow heard from town gossip that he was telling everyone who would listen his version of events. In his story, Willow had been his girl, had betrayed him out of spite, had lied to put him in prison. He was just a wronged man trying to talk to her, and the big rancher was keeping them apart. Some people, eager for drama, believed him. "Town is taking his side now," Jack reported after a supply run. "Some folks, anyway. They think you are being too controlling, boss. Think maybe Willow does want to talk to him and you are not letting her." "That is insane," Yates said. "That is people," Jack said with a shrug. "They love a good story, especially one that confirms what they already believe. And they already think Willow is bad news, so this just fits their narrative." Willow felt the old shame trying to resurface, but Yates took her hand and squeezed it. "Their opinions do not matter," he said firmly. "What matters is the truth, and the truth is that you are brave and good and deserve to be protected. Let them think what they want." But the town's shifting sentiment emboldened Marcus. He started appearing in Lyndon regularly, playing the part of the wronged lover, buying drinks for men in the saloon, charming women with sad stories. He was building support, creating doubt, and Willow could feel the noose tightening. "I should leave," she said one night after a particularly troubling report from town. "If I go away, he will follow me and you will be safe." "Absolutely not," Yates said immediately. "Running will not solve this. He will follow you and you will be alone and vulnerable. Here you have me. You have Jack and Tom and Sam. You have a home and defenses. We face this together." "But you could be hurt because of me," Willow said, her voice breaking. "I could not bear that." Yates cupped her face in his hands, his gray eyes intense. "Listen to me. I would rather face danger with you than safety without you. You are not a burden to be protected. You are my partner, my equal, my love. We are stronger together than apart. Do you believe that?" "I want to," Willow whispered. "Then believe it," Yates said, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "Your future starts with me, remember? I meant that. No matter what comes, we face it together." The confrontation came on a Tuesday in early September. Yates and Willow had driven into town for supplies, accompanied by Jack for extra security. They were loading the wagon when Marcus appeared, blocking their path. This time he had at least 6 men with him, some of them locals who had been swayed by his stories. "Willow," Marcus called out. "Come talk to me. That is all I am asking, just a conversation." "I have nothing to say to you," Willow replied, staying close to Yates. "See how he controls her," Marcus said to the crowd that was gathering. "She cannot even speak freely. That is not right. That is not how a man treats a woman he respects." "You want to talk about respect?" Yates said, his voice carrying across the street. "Let's talk about how you manipulated a grieving 19-year-old girl into committing crimes, how you threatened her when she wanted out, how you are violating your parole to harass her. Is that your definition of respect?" Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some people looked uncomfortable, as if they were reconsidering their position. "She is a liar," Marcus said. "She always was. She told you I threatened her. She is making it up to turn you against me." "I am not lying," Willow said, stepping forward. Her heart was pounding, but she was tired of being silent, tired of shame. "You used me. You took advantage of my desperation and led me into a life that destroyed everything I had left. I made mistakes, yes, I own that. But you are the one who made me believe I had no other choice. You are the one who threatened to hurt me if I left the gang. And you are the one who is here now, months after I have paid my debt to society, trying to ruin the new life I have built. That is not love. That is possession, and I am not yours to possess." The crowd was silent now, listening. "I served my time," Willow continued, her voice gaining strength. "I cooperated with the law. I have worked hard to rebuild my life and be a better person. If you cannot forgive me for my past, that is your right. But do not pretend that what he is doing is acceptable. Do not help him hurt me just because you think I deserve it." Mrs. Miller, standing in the doorway of her store, looked troubled. Several other townspeople were nodding slowly. The marshal, who had been watching from across the street, stepped forward. "Keller," Harrison said, "you are violating the terms of your parole by being here. You need to leave Lyndon and return to Dodge City immediately, or I will arrest you." "For what?" Marcus demanded. "Talking to someone." "For harassment, for violating parole, and for trespassing," Harrison said. "I have multiple witnesses to your threats, including several ranchers and townspeople. You are done here." Marcus looked around at the crowd, seeing that the tide had turned against him, his face twisted with rage. "This is not over," he said, staring at Willow. "You hear me? This is not over. He went for his gun. Everything happened fast. Yates pushed Willow behind him, drawing his own weapon. Jack tackled one of Marcus's companions who was reaching for his rifle. The marshal's gun was already out, pointed at Marcus. "Drop it," Harrison commanded. Marcus hesitated, his gun half drawn, calculating his chances. For a terrible moment, Willow thought he was going to fire anyway, thought she was going to watch the man she loved die in the street. But then Tom and Sam appeared from the side, their rifles trained on Marcus's men, and the odds shifted decisively. Marcus dropped his gun. "Smart choice," Harrison said. He nodded to his deputy who had appeared from the office. "Cuff him." Charges are harassment, parole violation, and attempted assault with a deadly weapon. That should keep him locked up for a good long while. As Marcus was led away in chains, he turned to look at Willow one last time. But there was no threat in his eyes anymore, just defeat and bitter acceptance. It was truly over. The crowd began to disperse, and Willow found herself surrounded by unexpected kindness. Mrs. Miller approached hesitantly. "I owe you an apology," the shopkeeper's wife said quietly. "I have been unkind and unjust. What that man said about you, what he tried to do, it made me realize that I have been seeing only what I wanted to see. You have been trying to make amends, and I have been making it harder. I am sorry." "Thank you," Willow managed, surprised. Others came forward with similar sentiments. Not everyone, not the truly hard-hearted, but enough. Enough to make Willow feel that maybe, just maybe, she could have a real place in this community again. Yates kept his arm around her the whole time, solid and supportive. When they finally got back to the ranch that evening, exhausted and emotionally drained, he pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You were so brave today," he said into her hair. "The way you spoke up, the way you faced him and the town, I have never been more proud of anyone in my life." "I was terrified," Willow admitted. "Being brave does not mean not being scared," Yates said. "It means being scared and doing it anyway. You taught me that." They stood together in the fading light, holding each other, letting the tension and fear drain away. They were safe. Marcus was gone. The future was bright and open before them. "Marry me," Yates said suddenly. Willow pulled back to look at him. "What? Marry me?" Yates repeated. "I know it is fast, I know people will talk, but I do not care. I love you, I want to spend my life with you. I want to build that school and raise children and grow old on this land together. I want to make it official, make you my wife, make sure everyone knows you are mine and I am yours. So marry me, Willow Drake, please." "Yes," Willow said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, of course, yes." Yates kissed her there in the yard, in full view of Jack and the ranch hands who were coming out of the bunkhouse. They cheered and hollered, and Jack fired his rifle in the air in celebration. It was perfect and ridiculous and wonderful. They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony on the ranch, with Jack serving as witness and the minister from the next town over officiating. Willow wore a simple white dress that Yates's sister had sent from Denver, and Yates wore his best suit. It was small and intimate, exactly what they both wanted. Some of the townspeople came, the ones who had softened toward Willow after the confrontation with Marcus. Mrs. Miller brought a cake as an apology gift. The neighbors from surrounding ranches attended, curious and supportive. It was not the grand wedding Willow had imagined as a girl, but it was better because it was real. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Yates kissed her with such tenderness that Willow felt her heart might burst. This was her second chance. This was her new beginning. This was the future she had never thought she could have. The first year of marriage was an adjustment, learning to live together as partners rather than employer and employee. But it was a joyful adjustment, full of laughter and growing intimacy. Yates taught Willow everything about running the ranch, including her in every decision. Willow transformed the house into a true home, warm and welcoming. They began building the schoolhouse that winter, a sturdy one-room structure at the edge of the property. Yates worked on it during slow periods, and by spring it was finished, complete with desks he had built himself and a blackboard ordered from St. Louis. Willow's first students were 3 children from a neighboring ranch, but word spread. By summer, she had 12 students of various ages, teaching reading and arithmetic and geography. She loved it, loved seeing young minds open and expand, loved making a real difference in these children's lives. The town gradually accepted her fully. It was not quick, and there were always some who would never forgive her past, but most people came to see her as Mrs. Ramsey, the schoolteacher, the rancher's wife, a valued member of the community. She joined the church sewing circle and helped organize the county fair. She became part of the fabric of Lyndon. In the spring of 1880, Willow discovered she was pregnant. Yates was thrilled, though nervous about becoming a father. They spent evenings discussing names and planning for the future, Yates's hand resting on Willow's growing belly. "Boy or girl, do you think?" Yates asked one evening. "Does it matter?" Willow replied. "Not even a little bit," Yates said, kissing her. "As long as the baby is healthy and has your spirit." Their son was born in December, a squalling bundle with Yates's gray eyes and Willow's dark hair. They named him Thomas, after Willow's father, and he became the center of their world. Yates was a devoted father, patient and playful, and watching him with their son made Willow fall even more deeply in love with her husband. The school continued to grow, and eventually Willow had to hire an assistant teacher to help manage the enrollment. The ranch prospered under Yates's careful management. They added the sheep he had talked about, diversifying their income. They built a new barn and expanded the house, adding 2 more bedrooms for the children they hoped to have. Their daughter, Anna, was born 2 years after Thomas, followed 3 years later by another son they named Jack, after the faithful ranch hand who had become like family to them. The house that had once been so lonely and empty now rang with children's laughter. On a warm evening in the summer of 1886, Willow stood on the porch watching her children play in the yard. Thomas was 8 now, chasing his sister and little brother with a stick horse. Yates came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Remember when you thought you did not deserve happiness?" he murmured in her ear. "I was wrong," Willow said, leaning back against him. "Or maybe I just needed the right person to show me I was wrong. Your future starts with me," Yates quoted the words he had said so long ago. "I meant that, you know, every word." "I know," Willow said, "and look at the future we built." She turned in his arms to face him, this man who had given her everything. Love, home, family, purpose. He had seen past her mistakes to the person she could become, and he had offered her not just forgiveness but partnership. He had changed her life in every possible way. "I love you," she said, as she said every day. "Thank you for believing in me." "I love you," Yates replied, kissing her softly. "Thank you for becoming my wife, my partner, the mother of my children. Thank you for making this house a home and my life complete. You are the best decision I ever made." Thomas called for his father to come play, and Yates went, scooping up both his daughter and youngest son and spinning them around until they shrieked with delight. Willow watched her family, her heart so full it felt like it might overflow. She had been shunned for her past mistakes, written off as irredeemable, treated as if she were permanently stained by the bad choices she had made when she was desperate and young. But Yates had seen something different. He had seen potential. He had seen worth. He had said, "Your future starts with me," and he had meant it. And what a future it had turned out to be. The years rolled on, bringing challenges and joys in equal measure. There were droughts that tested the ranch, winters that seemed endless, illnesses that frightened them. But there was also abundance, growth, celebrations, triumphs. Thomas grew into a responsible young man who loved the land as much as his father did. Anna proved to have her mother's gift for teaching and began helping in the schoolhouse when she was only 12. Young Jack was wild and adventurous, always getting into scrapes but charming his way out of them. Willow and Yates grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. The passion of those early days mellowed into something richer and more sustaining, a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. They still held hands walking around the ranch. They still found reasons to steal kisses in the kitchen. They still talked late into the night about their dreams and fears. The school became a permanent fixture of the community, eventually expanding to 2 rooms with 2 full-time teachers. Former students came back to thank Willow for the education that had changed their lives. Several went on to university, opportunities that would not have existed without her dedication. Marcus Keller died in prison in 1888, and when Willow received word, she felt nothing but a distant sadness for a wasted life. He had chosen bitterness and revenge, and it had consumed him. She had chosen to move forward, to build something better, and she had found happiness. Old Jack retired from ranch work when he turned 70, but stayed in the bunkhouse, too much a part of the Ramsey family to go anywhere else. He became the children's favorite storyteller, spinning tales of the old days and teaching them about honor and hard work. When he passed peacefully in his sleep at 73, the whole family mourned him as the grandfather he had become to them. In 1895, Thomas married a sweet young woman from town and brought her to live at the ranch. Yates and Willow built them a small house on the property, close enough for Thomas to help run the ranch but far enough for the young couple to have privacy. Anna went to teachers' college in Denver and returned with new ideas and methods that she brought to the school. Jack, true to his adventurous nature, became a horse trader, traveling through the territories, but always coming home to the ranch. Willow and Yates celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together the entire community. The house overflowed with friends and neighbors, with former students and their families, with all the people whose lives had been touched by the second chance given and taken. Speeches were made, toasts were offered, and through it all, Yates never let go of Willow's hand. 20 years ago, I hired a housekeeper, Yates said in his speech, making everyone laugh. I got so much more than I bargained for. I got a partner, a best friend, a lover, a mother for my children and the other half of my soul. Willow, you have made every day of these 20 years better than the last. Here is to 20 more and 20 after that. Hear, hear, the crowd cheered. Willow stood up, surprising everyone because she rarely spoke publicly. But tonight she wanted to. When I came to this ranch 20 years ago, I was broken, she said quietly. I had made terrible mistakes, and I believed I would pay for them for the rest of my life. But Yates saw something in me that I could not see in myself. He saw potential. He saw worth. And he gave me the most precious gift anyone can give another person. He gave me a second chance. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. I have spent these 20 years trying to be worthy of that gift. I have tried to be a good wife, a good mother, a good teacher, a good neighbor. I have tried to use my second chance to make a positive difference in the world, and I want to tell anyone listening that it is never too late to change. It is never too late to become better than you were. Your past does not have to define your future. Your mistakes do not have to be the end of your story. She turned to Yates, tears streaming down her face. You told me once that my future starts with you. You were right. But my present and my past, the good parts, they all include you too. You are woven into every happy memory I have. You are the best part of every day. You are my home, my heart, my everything. I love you more now than I did 20 years ago, which I would not have thought possible. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. There was not a dry eye in the house as Yates pulled Willow into his arms and kissed her, to the applause and cheers of everyone who loved them. As the years continued to pass, Willow and Yates settled into the comfortable rhythm of long marriage. Their hair grayed, their faces lined with the marks of time and laughter. They became grandparents when Thomas and his wife had a daughter they named Willow, and then a son named Yates. Anna eventually married a fellow teacher and had twins. Jack married late but enthusiastically, bringing home a rancher's daughter from Wyoming and immediately starting a family. The ranch continued to thrive, passed into Thomas's capable hands while Yates took on more of an advisory role. The school became part of the county system, a permanent institution that bore Willow's name as its founder. The town of Lyndon grew and prospered, and the Ramsey family remained at its heart. On a perfect autumn evening in 1905, Willow and Yates sat on their porch, as they had done thousands of times before. They were both in their 60s now, their children grown and their grandchildren providing new joy and purpose. The sunset was spectacular, painting the Kansas sky in shades of orange and purple and gold. "You ever regret it?" Willow asked suddenly. "Taking a chance on me? I came with so much trouble, so much baggage." Yates turned to look at her, this woman who had been his partner for 27 years. Her hair was silver now, her face lined, but to him she was as beautiful as the day he had first seen her in Mrs. Peterson's parlor. "Not for one single second," he said firmly. "You were the best decision I ever made. You gave me everything that matters. Love, family, purpose, joy. Without you, this would just be a ranch. With you, it became a home. You are my heart, Willow Ramsey. You always have been." "And you are mine," Willow said, taking his hand. "You saved me, Yates, in every way a person can be saved." "No," Yates said. "You saved yourself. I just gave you a safe place to do it. You did all the hard work. You became the woman you wanted to be." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky. From inside the house came the sound of their grandchildren laughing, visiting for the weekend. From the barn came the soft sounds of horses settling for the night. From everywhere came the sense of peace, of completion, of a life well lived. Willow had been shunned for her past mistakes, treated as if she were beyond redemption. But a cowboy had seen past the mistakes to the person underneath, and he had said, "Your future starts with me." And together, they had built a future more beautiful than either of them could have imagined alone. They had built a life of love and purpose and joy. They had raised children who were good and kind and strong. They had contributed to their community and made the world a little better. They had proven that second chances, when given with genuine belief and taken with genuine effort, could transform everything. As the last light faded from the sky and the prairie night settled around them, Yates and Willow remained on their porch, hands clasped, hearts intertwined. They had started as two lonely people looking for something they could barely name. They had found each other, found love, found home. They had found redemption and grace and the profound truth that the future is never written, that change is always possible, that love can heal even the deepest wounds. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real. It was hard won and hard fought, built on daily choices to be better, to love more, to keep trying. It was a testament to the power of belief, the strength of forgiveness, and the transformative nature of genuine love. And when they finally went inside, to their warm house full of family and laughter and life. They went together, as they did everything. Partners, lovers, best friends. Two people who had taken a chance on each other and found everything they had ever needed. The future had indeed started with them, together. And what a glorious future it had been.